I said, can I ask you a question, man? Like, why is it that Jews are so wealthy? What do you think it is, or what is it? And he was like, he looks at me, y'all, and he's like, brother, I'm saying my Jewish accent. He goes, brother, it's because Jews, we are obsessed with value exchange. And I said, value exchange? Okay, what does that mean? And he went on to explain to me that one of the reasons the Jewish culture were so blessed, and of course, this isn't a blanket statement like every Jew is bajillionaires, but like for the most part, a lot of Jews are very wealthy. One of the reasons is because even from a young age, you are raised to understand that the more you can solve problems for people, the more you are going to be compensated through the form of dollar signs. If you can focus on solving problems for people more than they focus on the problem itself, you will never have need for money in your life.
So today we're sitting down with Rick Pino. This dude is a powerhouse in the world of digital entrepreneurship. Rick is a strategic thinker. He's a battle-tested marketer, and he's a guy who's been building online businesses way before it was cool. And now he's helping other people do the same thing. Rick is the founder of Get Wisdom, where he coaches entrepreneurs from 6 to 7 and even 8 figures, and he shows people how to turn their skill sets into scalable digital products that generate recurring income without any inventory, without any overhead, and without all of the friction of more traditional business models. So if you've been looking for a blueprint to escape the grind and finally start stacking cash flow in the digital space, Rick's your guy. So grab your journal, take some notes, and let's dive into Rick Pino's playbook for building million-dollar digital businesses, mastering your market, and creating wealth that lasts. All right, man. Rick, thanks for joining On the Exit. How you doing?
Doing fantastic, gents. Let's go. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely, man. And I know there's, some of our listeners may be familiar with you and may not be. So I'd love to just kind of start our conversation here, just kind of hearing a little bit of your backstory, kind of leading up to where you're at now, and a little bit about, what you're into now.
Yeah, 100%. First of all, guys, like I said, thanks for having me on. By the way, if you guys are listening right now, if you guys are watching right now, do yourself a favor and go subscribe to this podcast. I was checking you guys out before, and just, you guys are giving some fantastic value to the space here. So guys, go leave your 5-star review for Caleb and Aaron right now, and do yourself a favor so you can stay plugged in, and it does them a favor too. Yeah, man, it's interesting. We were talking a little bit before we got jumping in. I grew up in a household of faith. My parents, we'd go to church every Sunday and everything. And dude, I was just always drawn to 2 things. I was drawn to worship leading, and I was drawn to business. And I became a worship leader in my youth group when I was like 11. And then I started my first business when I was 15. And it was hilarious. I'm going to tattle on myself here, guys. My very first business was called Glory Pacific International. You can, like, only a 15-year-old could name it, right? And like, they're like, why the heck did you name it that? I was like, I don't know. It just sounded like the biggest business in the world. So, that's kind of how I got started. So I've been into both as long as I can remember, man. It's super fun.
What kind of business was it with a name like that?
Oh gosh, bro. Of course, like most other people who get started in business, it was an MLM. One of the MLMs swooped me and a buddy in whenever we were teenagers. And it was bold of them. They were like prospecting our high school, bro. And they're like walking around the high school like, hey man, do you want to make $1 billion? We're like, heck yeah, dude, of course. And it's like, hey, join this thing. And it was like, there was this MLM selling, like basically breaking the monopoly of power companies. And that's actually how we got started. And I always I didn't know what marketing was, but that's kind of how I got started in marketing, dude. Just like going around telling people about this thing. And I thought it was cool because we're in business, and even though it was an MLM, but yeah, that's how I got started, man.
So how much money did you make on that first business, man?
Yeah.
Bro, I'm not going to lie. We made probably $5,000 total. Like, for a kid, that was okay. But we made some money. It was like a couple $100 a month. Sometimes it would go a little higher.
Yeah.
We were doing okay, but it wasn't life-changing or anything, but it was.
Any residuals coming in from Glory Pacific?
To this day? No, God, no. Oh, man. You wish, Aaron. You wish there was. Yeah. I do too.
Well, a lot of entrepreneurs, just the journey is like all of those different steps to where you are now, right? I'm sure there were things you learned, or even just principles or seeds planted to the next business. And, at what point, I guess, did you kind of fully jump into business? You mentioned you were a worship leader and started that full time.
Yeah.
So how did those two go side by side, I guess?
Yeah, 100%. So I went off to Bible school, guys. And then I actually decided, okay, because I was really deciding, do I want to go into business or do I want to become a worship leader? And at the time, like, I was super drawn to worship. So I was like, I'm doing this. And even as a teenager, I was 18 years old and we put out a record that did very well from my Bible school, had Revelation song on it, me and Carrie Job. And, I had some great mentoring in that season. I'm like, I'm going to run after this. And so I pursued worship and I did that for a number of years, probably 5 to 7 years without even looking at the business stuff again. But in the midst of all that, dude, it's like, my heart was longing for the business stuff because it's been a massive part of who I am. And so my wife and we started building the very first kind of for-profit business we built while I was leading worship, was a marketing agency. And this was back in late 2016. I think it was like September 2016. Social media was still fairly young and stuff. And I started posting online. You guys are going to laugh at this. I was starting to post content back in like 2016, and a lot of well-known guys and gals in my space at the time, other artists and worship leaders, bro, they'd be texting me and stuff, like rebuking me, like, yo, you're posting too much. This is, self-promotion and this and that. And I'm like, okay, I'm just posting content. And it wasn't even business content. It was like about worship. Like, here's a scripture, guys, and check it out. And they'd be rebuking me. You're posting too much. And it's so funny because like a couple of years later, the same peeps are like, hey, bro, how you doing? Can you show me this social media thing, bro?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? I'm like, of course, man. So yeah, we were doing both for a long overlap. I just never posted about it publicly because we were building like actual like brick and mortar businesses and marketing agencies, and we were in real estate a whole bunch. And so, yes, it was fun. So I was doing it the whole time. I say the whole time, most of the time I was out leading worship and doing all that stuff too, missions and yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And a lot of people, that whether they're faith-based like we are, or, they have just some other drive, philanthropic, purpose that they want to live for. A lot of people struggle, I think, to find that balance of doing something for, greater good and purpose and doing something to build a business and make money. So how did you, as you've been doing this for quite a while, how did you strike that balance?
Bro, what's interesting? So in my missions and worship days, I had the opportunity to go to Israel on one of these trips, right? And we were out there doing worship. And one of the evenings, guys, it was like this Shabbat dinner. It was like an evening dinner. We were up on this rooftop. I didn't know it, but I was sat next to this billionaire. And thank God, this was like at the beginning of my journey. And I sat next to this billionaire. I didn't know he was a billionaire. I had some like intuition. He's probably a business guy because like a lot of people were coming up and he was talking about business. And I finally asked him, I was like, hey man, we just hit it off and we really liked each other and we became friends and we're friends to this day. But I said, can I ask you a question, man? Like, why is it that Jews are so wealthy? Like, I know that there's like spiritual sides to it and whatever, and God's made a covenant with them, but is there like a practical, like, what do you think it is, or what is it? Because, this guy, he's not messianic. He's a Jew. He's just a regular, normal, everyday Jew. And he was like, he looks at me, y'all, and he's like, brother, I'm saying my Jewish accent. He goes, brother, it's because Jews, we are obsessed with value exchange.
Wow.
And I said, value exchange? Okay, what does that mean? And he went on to explain to me that one of the reasons that he believed that the Jewish culture were so blessed. And of course, this isn't a blanket statement like every Jew is bajillionaires, but like for the most part, a lot of Jews are very wealthy. And he said one of the reasons is because even from a young age in these Jewish households, you are raised to understand that the more you can solve problems for people, the more you are going to be compensated through the form of dollar signs. And I was like, wow, interesting. And then he went on to tell me, if you can focus on solving problems for people more than they focus on the problem itself, you will never have need for money in your life.
Wow.
And man, dude, that set it off in my heart. Like, wow, it really does come down to that. Cause think about it like this, guys, like, none of us go into the grocery store with like the cart or the buggy walking around all suspicious, like grocery stores are a scam, bro. Like all these guys want to do is take your money. Like no one says that, right? You don't go into the dentist with a toothache and be like, man, these dentists are scams, bro. My tooth is hurting. It's killing me, but man, you're a scam. You're all about the money. No one does that. Why? Because these businesses, they have obvious solutions to the market's obvious problems. And when they can solve an obvious problem, they get paid. And no one feels slimy or weird like it's a sales gimmick or it's a scam. No one feels that because it's an obvious solution to an obvious problem. And so for me, what really set it off for me in the beginning days was understanding God has put gifts and talents and abilities and skills on the inside of each and every one of us that are there to serve humanity with. And if we can do a good job of serving humanity and solving problems for people, AKA exchanging value, if we can give them value here, they're going to say thank you with their own value returned back to us in the form of dollar signs. And the punchline is this, guys, the whole entire world goes around on this principle. The only reason why anyone anywhere has any money because somebody somewhere sold something for a profit. Somebody somewhere solved a problem for somebody and charged somebody a profit. And I was telling this story to one of my students recently, and really sweet young girl, but she's like, hey, Rick, I'm curious because I actually I'm a secretary and I work at this office. I make money by working at this office. Like I don't make money because I make a profit. And I said, wait, the company you work for is selling something for a profit. And with their profits, they pay you. That's how you get paid. And then I had a pastor friend raise his hand and go, hey, what about us pastors here? We make money by donations like missionaries, pastors. I said, exactly. Where is the people who are giving to your organizations? Where are they getting money from? They're either getting money from a job that they work at that sells something for a profit, or they have their own business where they sell something for a profit, right? And so when we understand it's all about value exchange, exchanging value with one another, it really breaks those false mindsets around like sales is gross and slimy and weird. It doesn't have to be whenever you position it as selling is serving, therefore selling is good.
Absolutely, man. No, I couldn't agree more. And I know a lot of faith-based entrepreneurs, they struggle with that idea, of like, well, they don't want to be salesy. They don't want to make it all about the money or whatever. But the thing is that, money is a tool. It's neither good nor bad. It's, it's what you do with it. It's like a hammer, right? Like if I use a hammer to hit Aaron in the head, then it's bad. If I use a hammer to build a house, it's good because it's done for, it serves its purpose. And so I think, rewiring, and this is specifically to those listening to the show that are kind of faith-based entrepreneurs that maybe wrestle with some of these things. And that's that you just have to shift your mindset about money in general, not just about sales, but about money in general. Like money's good if you're good. Money's bad if you're bad. It's just it's a magnifying glass on you is all it is. And
1,000%, dude. It's like you're saying, it's a tool. It's like fire. It's like the internet. It's like any other, like fire can burn the whole house down. It can burn people. It can kill people, or it can be used to warm people who are cold. Like, I think when it comes to resources like money, wealth, riches, it really comes down to what is the intent of the person that is in stewardship over that resource? And because as you guys know, and I'm sure the listeners understand, all resources do is amplify the intents of the person who have stewardship over it. Right. And so, like you said, the intention of somebody with a hammer who's got, terrible intentions in their heart and they want to go hit people with it, it's an extension of that person's intentions. They can use it as an extension. Same thing with money, same thing with wealth, same thing with riches.
And what I've found, man, is that building a business with that kind of set of core values, it actually creates more success because whether people realize it or not, they want to do business with people that have those kind of values, that actually care about the end game for the customer, the client. Like I don't want to try to pull, the wool over your eyes and get you to do something that's not actually in your best interest. And if it's not in your best interest, I don't want you to do it. If investing in one of my investment opportunities at our private equity firm is not the right decision for you, then I'll be the first person to tell you that you shouldn't do it. Right. And so, and I think
that's
people
what makes
crave
sales
that
slimy,
kind of authenticity.
Right? Absolutely, bro. I agree with you. Like, I feel like that's actually the main thing that makes sales slimy is when the person trying to make the sale is more concerned about their outcome than they are about their client's outcome. Because now you've made the sale about you, right? Every single one of us, we have bad sales experiences like, oh, that guy made me feel weird, or she made me feel weird, or that was slimy or weird. It's probably because the person making the sale, their intention was, I'm in this for me. And that's not positioning selling as serving. But when you position selling as serving and you go, okay, I'm more concerned about your transformation and you getting help than I am about the sale. Now you start seeing sales as a byproduct of service. And it's just logic. The more you can serve people, the more you can help people, the more you can bring value to people's lives. I can't help but get paid. Right? Like the more I can, and here's the punchline. When you position yourself in sales with this idea that selling is serving, now I'm also disattached from the sale itself because I don't need this sale. I just need a sale. And if I can sow enough seeds of value, you can't outsow the farm. And if I do my part to sow the seeds of value, God will do his part and bring in the harvest of sales in his time.
Right.
Rick, what are your thoughts on just going along the same themes, selling, because you were a worship leader for a while, you're touring, you're going to different countries, selling products, selling CDs, I'm even thinking of, just non-faith people, right? Where they're taking this idea of sales, where it can be a scam, it can be slimy.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on selling Christian products?
My thoughts on selling Christian products are the same as selling non-Christian products. A lot of people, since you guys are faith-based, I'm faith-based, a lot of people in the church have this limited and false belief that freely receive, freely give, brother. And what they're doing is they're quoting Matthew 8, right? Hey, freely receive, freely give. You shouldn't sell anything. Give everything away for free. But the problem with that mindset and just the blanket statement of freely receive, freely give, the problem with that is they're not considering the context of what Jesus actually said there, which, what did he say before that statement? He said, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the leper, cast out devils, freely you receive, freely give. So what is the context there? The context is we don't charge for spiritual things, AKA I'm not going to charge you to pray for you. Hey, buddy, you need prayer? Only $50 today only. It's on sale. I'm not going to charge you to prophesy over you. I'm not going to charge you to raise you from the dead. I'm not going to charge you for those things. Like that's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Freely you've received that. So freely you should give that. However, it is not wrong to charge for things and specifically for merchandise, for products. And again, I know people are like, well, what about Jesus? He overturned the tables because they were merchandising. As a worship leader, I want to submit a little bit of insight into that story because my conviction is one of the reasons why Jesus overturned the tables when they were selling the products there at the temple is because look at what they were selling. They were selling doves and lambs and goats, like blemish free. And what were they doing? They were making people's worship convenient. We don't have to raise our own lamb and make sure that it's spotless and perfect. Let's just get one when we get there. Like I'll just buy one when we get there. It's way easier. Right. And me as a worship leader, I don't believe your worship should not always be convenient. There should be some worth to the worship. That's what makes it worship. It's worthship. And so my conviction is that Jesus was like, listen, you've made my father's house a den of thieves, not because they were selling things in that specific context, but because they were making worship convenient. And I believe that's what he was really like frustrated about. Like, guys, let the people bring their offering. Let them do what it takes. Let them come with their gifts. Let it cost them something, because if it doesn't cost them something, it doesn't have any worth. And if it doesn't have any worth, it's not really worship. So those are my thoughts as far as like, what about Christians selling things, and what should Christian artists even sell stuff at their events? Sure. As long as you're not charging for prayer or prophesying over people or like, those kind of things. Why not? Of course.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's some great insights there. And in terms of, your current business though, it's called Get Wisdom, right?
Yep.
That's your consulting firm. You coach folks. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I'd love to hear first, kind of how did you break into this, digital product sales game in the first place? And then what happened that caused to say, you know what, I want to build a business around helping other people build businesses?
Yeah, 100%. So the way it started for my wife and I is, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we had built a number of very successful businesses outside of the church, outside of my audience, in real estate, in e-commerce, in intellectual property, all kinds of different, areas that we did be very successful in these businesses. And we did very well to the tunes of millions and even collectively tens of millions, throughout all of them. And, what I started to notice was as the internet and social media began to mature in the past 5-ish years or so to the place that it is now, all of a sudden you started seeing a lot of online opportunities to make money online. And you see things like Airbnb arbitrage and Amazon FBA and crypto and, drop shipping and blah, blah, all these different opportunities. Guess how 100% of them are going to deliver the education to you through a course, a mentorship, some kind of training manual digitally. They're all doing it through digital products. So I was like, man, if I could just jump the line here, teach my students to jump the line instead of having to go through all the stuff that I went through, because I built a lot of businesses in those zones. And if I could just go, look, the punchline to get to is you should learn how to monetize your knowledge, your experience, your expertise, your passions, and turn it into a digital educational resource, AKA a digital product, where you do the work one time and then you put it out there and it has the potential to pay you over and over and over again. Because guys, here's what most people do. When you're still trading your time and your effort for dollars, that is the slowest, hardest path to wealth creation. Why? Because most people's only income producing assets are their time and their effort. Right. And so what that means is in order to make more money, you have to give more time and you have to use more effort. Well, the problem there is time is limited and every single one of us's efforts are limited. And so we can't just you can't work 25 hours a day. It's impossible, right? Like you can't, work 100 times harder than you are now. It's impossible. So what I found was in Deuteronomy 8:18, where the Bible says, remember the Lord, it is he who gives you the power to create wealth. I was like, So God's way of wealth creation is not necessarily connected to trade more time and more effort for dollars. I see in Deuteronomy 8:18, God says, I will give you the power to create wealth. And I was like, wait a second, there's something there about that word create. And really what it is when you can disconnect your time from your dollar and connect your earning potential to your creativity. Guys, in the first 5 sentences of the Bible, the very first thing that in the first 5 words of the Bible, the very first thing God told us, in the beginning, God created. It's the very first thing he told us about himself. He said, I am a creator. And I believe that everything that God told us about himself, since we're created in his image and likeness, he also is telling us that about ourselves. So if God says, I'm a creator, I believe he's saying you should be a creator as well. God says, I am holy. He's saying you should be holy as well. God says, I am a father. You should have a father or a mother's heart as well. God says, I'm a provider. You should be a provider and a protector as well, etc. So my philosophy around all of this is when it comes to digital products, okay, let's disconnect our time from our dollar and let's connect our earning potential not to something that is limited like time and effort, but something that is unlimited like creativity. And guess what? When you connect your earning potential to something that is unlimited like creativity, guess what becomes unlimited? Your earning potential. Anyways, all that to say, guys, I feel like digital products are the number one best way for anyone to learn how to generate wealth in 2025 and beyond.
I love it that, I just think of a lot of consultants, that maybe haven't had a lot of experience, in business. And I think a lot of them have had some, But I think it's really interesting that you did all this, right, in various industries. And then would you say you've kind of made more, or you've even accelerated, because you already had that knowledge and that work, but it was based on your time and effort, right? But then
Yeah,
you were able to
100%.
create these products based on, coaching people to do these things, but it was just scalable now.
Yeah, 100%, bro. Because like in the early days of like, building the businesses, learning the skills, etc., it took years and years, decades even, to make millions and eventually, 8-figure plus. But then in the digital space, because we had developed all these skills, it went way faster. I was able to make 8 figures in the digital space way faster than I was in like the non-digital space. And I think a lot of that, guys, comes down to like this principle we see in Genesis 1:26, where God says, the very first thing God says over humanity is he blesses them, says God bless them. And then what did he say? He said, be fruitful, multiply, and subdue the earth. And there's an interesting framework here that I've found. Number one, be fruitful. So the first thing you have to be, you must become, because the more you can become, the more you can do / the easier it is to do the thing. And as soon as you can get good at doing the thing, then you can have the stuff. And we see this be, do, have framework in Genesis 1:26. God blesses them and he says, be fruitful, do, multiply. So that's the doing. And then he says, have dominion. And a lot of times, guys, people see this framework backwards. They start with have, like, oh, it must be nice to have that. Must be nice to be a millionaire. Must be nice. Oh, I can never have that. And because they start with having and it feels too far away, now they disqualify themselves from doing the stuff. I'll never be able to do that. And because they disqualify themselves from doing the stuff, then they never become the person that it takes. But if you start with becoming first, how can I become more? How can I become all that God has called me to be? How can I become more so that I can do more? Because you guys know this, the more you can become, the more skills you develop, the easier it is to do the stuff. And the easier it gets to do the stuff, the more you can have the things. And there's nothing wrong with having the things at that point because you took the right path to get there. Right? When Proverbs tells us that an inheritance received too quickly is dangerous, it's talking about starting with the have first. Here's a bunch of resources. That's why people who win the lottery and whatever, professional athletes who get these big lump sums of money, they're rich for a moment, but then 1, 2, 3 years later, they're broke again. Why? Because their wallet went up, but their mindset went down. They started with have, and they never did, so therefore they never became. But we have to become first so that we can do more, so that we can have.
Yeah, that's really good. That I love that framework and that perspective. And I think that for like successful people who are able to actually step into it, like it's almost like that's intuitive for certain people. Like you realize, like if I'm going to bring value to the world, then I actually have to have value to give, which means I need to get better. And I talk a lot about this. I try to instill this in my kids, anyone that's within my realm of influence. It's that the greatest superpower you can ever cultivate is self-agency. Everything that's going wrong in your life is your fault, right? Not because it technically is, because I'm sure like bad stuff happens to everybody, right? Like crappy situations. But the truth is that the only thing that you have the power to control is you. Like you're the only factor that is the same, common denominator in every situation of your life is you. And until you learn to own that the reason you are where you are, the reason you're experiencing what you're experiencing is because of you. I think there's a story of a psychiatrist. I call it the psychiatrist and the woman whose life was a disaster, right? This woman goes in to see the psychiatrist. He's newer in his the psychiatrist is newer in his practice, and he, kind of is getting his feet wet and how to really run this. She starts telling him, hey, I'm losing my business. My marriage is falling apart. My kids, hate me. I'm getting ready to file bankruptcy. Like everything freaking sucks right now. And she dumps this whole story on him. And, he's sitting there like, oh man, like, I don't know how I'm going to help this lady. I think she probably should kind of crawl into a hole and just die because her life really is that bad. And then she says this phrase. She says, please, doctor, tell me that all of this is my fault. And he's like, why in the world would you want me to tell you that all this is your fault? And she said, because if it's my fault, then I can change it. If it's my fault, then I have the power to change it. If it's someone else's fault, I can't change it. And to me, like that, like for people who are going to experience asymmetric success in life, they've got to be anchored to that kind of self-agency where they realize. And so I love your framework of like you can bypass owning your own situation. And the easiest way to do that is just focus on the have. Just focus on the have first, right? They have what I don't have, and I'm going to sit around and feel sorry about it rather than actually becoming better, becoming more, becoming someone who brings real value to the world. But in order to accept that the problem is you, in order to become something, you have to start by accepting that the problem with your life is you, right? So I love any kind of other thoughts on that. I love your framework because it brings it kind of down to everything in life, in life and business and success. It comes down to self-agency.
That's it, man. And I think that's where a lot of people miss it, dude. Like a lot of people just don't want to take accountability and responsibility for their own stuff, right? It's so funny because while you're telling this story, bro, it reminds me of 2 Kings chapter 4. It's the widow who goes to Elisha, please help me. Like, my husband served in your community and please, like, now the creditors are coming. They're going to take my kids. And Elisha looks at her. He's like, what do you want me to do about it? He's like, what do you have in your house? And she's like, I don't have anything. And I think a big, like, terrible mistake most people make is they call their something nothing. I'm just a barista. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just a grandma. I'm just a salesman. I'm just a this. I'm just a worship leader. I'm just a that, whatever it is. And just like this woman in 2 Kings 4, she's like, I don't have anything. I just have this little jar of oil. And Elisha's like, boom, right there. He said, the thing that is already in your hand, what you already have in your house, is probably the thing that God's going to use to break you out of this situation. Yeah. And especially when we start realizing that it's not our something is nothing. It's our quote unquote nothing is actually a lot of something. Yeah. Right. We can do something with this. So you guys know the story. She goes and she borrows a bunch of jars and she pours out her oil. And it's funny because Caleb and Aaron, she has to become an entrepreneur to take responsibility of her life. She becomes an entrepreneur. She borrows all these jars. She pours out the oil. She goes and sells them. And then she goes back to Elisha. She's like, hey, what do I do with all this money? He goes, you and your sons, he said, pay off your debt and then go live off the rest. Yeah. Ta-da. Like, how did she get out of the mess that she was in? She actually first had to take responsibility for her own mess. This is my fault. Like you're saying, Caleb. Second of all, she had to go start a business. Ecclesiastes 5:3 says the dream comes through much business. It doesn't say it comes through much prayer. You guys should all pray more. I'm a man of prayer. I love prayer. But the dream doesn't come through much prayer. It comes through much business. It comes through much action, right? And so whatever that dream is in your heart, the best, most surefire way to see that dream come to reality is to start a business where you go serve people and solve problems for people and then sell your oil for a profit. And that way you can live off the rest and see your dream come true. So I love your story. It's in the Bible. There's a million other stories like that, bro. But the principles are all the same. Like, you got to take responsibility for your own junk. You got to take massive action. And, for those who want to actually build wealth, you probably need to start a business. Yeah, no, that's really good. Man, it's been a great conversation. I think we could, continue this conversation for quite some time, but we're going to jump into the part of the episode we call it the exit round. We ask every guest the same 5 questions. Excited to hear your answers. Aaron, why don't you jump in? Yeah, for sure. All right, Rick, this is a question that everyone asks. What's your all-time favorite business book? My all-time favorite business book, well, it's going to be the Bible, guys, as the all-time favorite.
You quoted the Bible. You dropped about 15 bombs on us. So
yeah. I mean, so my all-time favorite book is the Bible as far as business. But if it's not the Bible, I would have to say specifically for new or aspiring entrepreneurs, it's probably got to be Rich Dad, Poor Dad, man. Just the principles in there, the difference between assets and liabilities, how to think like an entrepreneur, how to break free of that 9-to-5 mindset. I think for most people who are just beginning, that book is fire.
Absolutely, man. What percentage of your current income would you classify as passive?
Percentage of my current income that's passive is probably, I would say probably 40 to 50% of my current income is passive.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's about 40 to 50%. Yeah.
It's better than most.
That's awesome. Is the goal to, I mean, you're obviously, have a passion about working and coaching. Is the goal to go passive fully, or is your vision more to grow the active side, to just keep it balanced?
No, it's a fantastic question. I think most people have this like pie in the sky aspiration. Like, I want to just only do passive income ever. Like, the problem with that is that God made us to work and to serve people. Yeah. Right. And so if you're like, all I have is passive income, like, I'll be honest, like me and my wife and our children and probably our grandkids could all live off my passive income. It's a really awesome blessing. Thank you, God. But why do I want to stop there? It's almost like saying, like, how healthy do you want your marriage to be? How happy do you want your kids to be? The happiest kids ever, the most healthiest marriage ever. How much money do you want to make? Well, actually, not too much. I don't want to be too great. I want to make as absolute much money as I can, not for the sake of greed, but for the sake of potential. And so a lot of that comes through the active income side, and active income is super fun. So I'm here for both of them. The goal is not necessarily, living all off passive or all off active. The goal is, how much potential can I grow into? How much more can I become? Why not? Right?
Yeah. I love it. That's really
absolutely
good.
Love it.
What's one thing you wish you could do more of, but your business commitments hold you back?
One thing I wish I could do more of that the business commitments hold me back. I would actually say, because of my business, I'm able to do everything that I desire in my heart to do, as much as I desire to do it. I have complete time freedom. I have complete, money freedom. I can go wherever I want to go, do whatever I want to do, spend as much time with whoever I want to spend. So it's not that my business holds me back at all. It's actually my business has provided freedom for me. So that's kind of the way I see it. Yeah.
That's one of the best answers we've gotten to that question. I love it so much.
Great.
If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self about building a business?
If I could go back in time and give myself advice about building a business, I would say this: Rick, you are going to be very wealthy, but you might as well figure this thing out as fast as humanly possible, because the faster you can figure this business, this finance, this money thing out, the longer you can have to enjoy it with the people that you love the most.
Yeah. Love that.
What's your strategy, Rick, for creating time freedom and financial freedom for yourself? You have that already, but if you wanted to share one or two strategic tips for listeners.
Yeah, I think it's around business, man. You know what I'm saying? It's, if you can take a season and, I think it's really, when it comes to business, isn't it silly? Let me back up a little bit and just say it like this. Okay. Wouldn't it be silly to have a newborn baby that you expect for that baby to feed you, to clothe you, to take care of you, instead of you taking care of it? And this is where most, especially new and aspiring entrepreneurs, where they land, is they're like, I'm building a business. How come it's not taking care of me yet? Like, no, it's not how it works. You've got to take care of your business first. You've got to feed it. You've got to clothe it. You've got to warm it. You've got to take care of it. You got to, in the beginning, especially, you really need to pay close attention and be absolutely like, this is my baby. And if you can do that for long enough, consistently enough, as the baby grows and as the baby matures, then one day, just like in real life, the baby will be able to take care of you. And so how do you create time freedom? You give up the time freedom for a season to build that business in that beginning season and give everything you can, as much and as often as consistent as you can, to build that business. Because if you can stick with it and you can really grow that thing, one day it's going to be able to take care of you. And so that's one of the ways to build financial freedom, time freedom, etc.
Super good answer, man. I love that.
No, it's great. And I think the power play on that is that it takes a baby 18 to 20 years to grow up, but you can build a business.
Not with digital marketing, digital knowledge
build a
products,
business in 2 or 3 years. That's pretty strong, man. It takes good care of you.
That's right. So Rick, I know there's a lot of our listeners that would benefit from getting further connected with you. What's the kind of the one best way for them to plug into Rick Pino's world?
It's just, I'm all over social media at Rick Pino, RickPino, rickpino.com. I'm all over the internet or whatever. They can just find me wherever they like to scroll or wherever they like to check stuff out, and I'm there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Rick, man, it's been a great conversation. Glad to have you on Own the Exit. Like Rick said at the beginning, which, by the way, Rick, appreciate the shout out for everyone to subscribe and leave a review. Just want to remind you to do that. If this episode was valuable to you, make sure you share it with somebody so they can continue to receive value from Own the Exit. And we're going to, kind of with that, we're going to wrap it up. Aaron, you got any kind of closing remarks here?
Great. No, just a great episode. I love, just my last closing remark, I guess, would just be, I love how bold you are about building wealth, about time freedom, financial freedom, and just really, even sounds like even when you're 15, you're just like seasoned that, and you're like, oh, go all in, which is encouraging. And, I think is just great for listeners. So yeah, appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on, man. It's been awesome.
Yep.
Absolutely.